Most people think that rich and successful people live in Hollywood. I live in Los Angeles and see the Hollywood sign from my window. But in the past, I could only dream of being wealthy and successful. Hi, my name is Ned, and I want to tell you my story. I've always been a quiet and shy guy. In college, I was ignored at best, and teased for having a girly face and an ungainly figure at worst. A few years ago, my parents lost their business and got into debt, and we moved into a small apartment. I didn't even have a separate room anymore. To help my parents, I started acting in movies. Of course, I was only ever an extra. No one ever hired me for any major roles. But one day, everything changed. I have a sister, Rachel. When our family's issues with money began, she had a fight with our parents and left for New York. We didn't hear anything from her for several years, but some days ago, she suddenly appeared on our doorstep. Rachel came to visit us, but Mom and Dad were still angry and did not want to see her. I was the only one who talked to her. Rachel rented an apartment and called me, asking me to come see her. When I opened the door, I was horrified. Her whole face was covered with ugly red spots. Rachel dragged me into the apartment and immediately burst into tears. She said that she had decided to try some new cosmetics, but the quality of the product turned out to be poor, and now she had a terrible allergy. I asked her if she wanted me to buy medicine for her, but Rachel shook her head and asked me for something else. It turned out that my sister had been running a YouTube channel for a long time and used social media a lot. That night, she was supposed to have a stream, which already had been sponsored. If she didn't do it, she would have to pay a large sum of money. I can't let my audience see me like this. Even filters won't hide these horrible spots. That's why I want you to take my place. At first, I thought she was joking and laughed, but Rachel looked dead serious. I'm sorry, but are you out of your mind? How would that even work? Don't worry, I've already thought of everything. Everyone used to think you were a girl, right? No offense, but you have a very girly face. Besides, we look very similar. We'll film in low light, you'll change your clothes and put on a wig. I will do your makeup and we'll change your voice using a special program. I've already installed it on the computer. The idea seemed insane to me, and I said no, but Rachel kept trying to convince me and knew exactly what to say. You always wanted to be in a big movie, so try yourself in an unusual role. In the end, she managed to convince me. When my new look was finished, we were both shocked by how girly I looked. Rachel closed the curtains, and I turned on some neon lights, and I sat down in front of the computer and camera. I was afraid to start the stream for a second, and wanted to give up and run away. But it was a challenge, and I decided that I had to rise to it. The viewers immediately started asking me all sorts of questions. Rachel messaged me to tell me how to respond to them. At first, I felt uncomfortable, but then I got into it and relaxed. By the end of the stream, I even started improvising. Rachel looked at me, surprised, and gave me a thumbs up. I acted perfectly. The most amazing thing was that I even liked it. I felt so much more confident looking like a girl than I usually did. The next day, I decided to do something crazy. As I arrived at the film studio where I usually worked part-time, I sneaked into the room with the props, rummaging through the piles of things. I found several costumes and bright wigs. I managed to sneak them out of the studio, came to Rachel and asked her for cosmetics. Thanks to her tips and online lessons, I quickly learned how to put on makeup. Then I filmed several videos with different looks, created a new account under the name Nancy, and uploaded them on it. Rachel told her subscribers about my channel, and I went home. I couldn't even imagine what it would all lead to. The next morning, my phone was bursting with notifications. During the night, my videos had got thousands of likes and comments, and the number of subscribers had grown to almost 2,000. That's how my double life began. Only Rachel knew about my hobby. I often came to her place to take photos of myself, film videos, and stream. Nancy's audience grew by the day, and soon I was even more popular than Rachel. One day, I was looking through my notifications and noticed, by chance, that Tina had subscribed to me. My heart immediately skipped a beat. She was the most beautiful girl in my college. I had been in love with her for a long time, but of course, I hadn't dared to come up to her and talk to her. She was way out of my league. But then, I got a message from her. Tina had written that she really liked my pictures. Well, pictures of Nancy, more like. I replied, and we started texting each other quite often, and gradually became virtual friends. I learned more about Tina in those weeks than I had in a year. She didn't get along with her dad. He wanted her to study finance, but Tina dreamed of going to heaven, literally. She wanted to become a pilot, an unusual dream for a girl, wouldn't you agree? But I understood her perfectly because I myself had dreamed of something impossible my whole life. One day, Tina texted me and said that she had broken up with her boyfriend. He had been cheating on her and dating someone else. I immediately wanted to find that guy and give him a good punch. However, when Tina texted me that she hated when people lied to her, I just bit my lip guiltily. I was lying to her too. I really wanted to open up to her and tell her the truth, but I couldn't. She wouldn't have talked to me again. One day, I came home from college and found my parents looking very upset. They were sitting on a sofa and hugging. Mom was crying, and Dad was sorting out the checks scattered on the table. What happened? We did not repay the loan on time, and now we are being charged large interest. If we don't pay in a week, we will have to sell the apartment. I knew we weren't doing great, but I hadn't thought it was that bad. If we sold the apartment, we would literally be out on the street. Mom started sobbing, and Dad patted her on the shoulder soothingly. I stayed up all night trying to come up with a way out of the situation. I was even thinking of monetizing my channel. After all, Rachel was earning money from her publications and streams. But my account had been created quite recently, and despite the large audience, that feature was not available for me yet. Rachel came to our house that morning. For the first time, she asked our parents for forgiveness for running away and handed them an envelope with money. Here, take it. It's not much, but even this envelope with money. Here, take it. It's not much, but even this amount will be useful now. Our parents hesitated a little, looked at each other, and then hugged her. After they'd left for work, Rachel and I sat down to drink tea. We were both upset, and I still couldn't figure out what to do. Suddenly, I got another notification from a casting director of the film studio that I worked at. At first, I thought that letter had come to my main mail. I often got strict offers to act as an extra, but it turned out that the casting director was writing to Nancy. There would apparently be an audition for a role in a full-length movie at the studio soon. The role was female, and, according to the director, Nancy would be perfect for it. A famous producer was also supposed to come to the audition, and he would decide after seeing the audition whether he would invest in the movie or not. I was literally speechless. I had been dreaming about it for so long. I couldn't refuse such an offer. But the role was being offered not to me, but to Nancy. What would happen if everyone found out that Nancy was actually a guy? I was hesitant and didn't know what to do. But Rachel, as always, managed to give me the push I needed. Don't even think about refusing. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Besides, you will be able to earn money and pay off Mom and Dad's debts. The last argument convinced me. I replied to the casting director and began to read the script he'd sent me. I didn't have much time to prepare and was terribly worried. For the next few days, I lost appetite, and when I once again refused to eat dinner, my mom thought I was ill. The only thing that distracted and helped me was talking to Tina. I posted the news about Nancy and told my subscribers I would be auditioning for a role in a movie. Of course, they were delighted. Tina wrote and said that she really wanted to come support me in person, but she couldn't. Her father was dragging her to some event. That was quite a relief, to be honest. It would have been very difficult for me to act in front of Tina. On the day of the audition, I came to Rachel's place, changed my clothes, and headed to the film studio. Even from afar, I noticed there were a lot of cars in the parking lot, and a huge crowd had gathered by the entrance. There were a lot of posters and printed photos of my face. Nancy's face, to be more precise. That even made me more nervous, and I walked into the studio using another entrance so that they wouldn't notice me. There were also many people next to the hall where the auditions were being held, but those were actors. I even noticed some celebrities among them. I was extremely anxious. I felt hot. Sweat was streaming down my forehead, so I had to fix my makeup several times. When the agent called my name and told me to come in, I felt like I was in a dream. When I walked into that hall, I tried not to look at anyone present. I got grip of myself, took a deep breath, and started to act out the scene. As soon as I started, the fear went away. I was completely taken by the role and no longer noticed anything around me. At the end of the monologue, I started to gesticulate and jerked my head sharply. Too sharply. Everything happened in an instant. I guess I hadn't fixed my wig properly. Before I knew it, it flew off my head and flew to the floor. I automatically bent down to pick it up, but then I saw something that struck me. Tina was sitting next to the famous producer. She was looking at me, shocked, and slowly got up from her seat. There was absence in the hall. It seemed to be broken only by the crazy beats of my heart. Tina suddenly started crying and ran out of the hall. Ignoring everyone else, I rushed after her. I caught up to her in the hallway and tried to explain everything, but she pushed me away and called me a liar. Tears were streaming down her beautiful face. I wanted to wipe them away, but I didn't dare touch her. You've been lying to me this whole time? And I thought I'd found a friend who really understood me. I don't want to see you anymore. She ran away, and I remained standing in the hallway. All of a sudden, I heard footsteps behind me, and the casting director came up to me. Looking at Tina's retreating back, he asked me how I knew the producer's daughter. It was only at that moment that I realized how Tina had even got to the audition. So that's who her father was, and that's what kind of event he had dragged her to. It was probably fate. What else could I call it? I was looking at Tina thoughtfully when the voice of the casting director brought me back to reality. Do you realize what the producer thinks of us now? We told him you were an internet star, but it turns out you are a guy? You will never be hired even as an extra anymore. No decent film studio will want you. It was weird, but at that moment, I didn't care. Tina's tear-stained face was still standing in front of my eyes, and the director's screams only irritated me. In the middle of his rant, I turned around and shrugged to the exit. But then I remembered that I had not put on another wig. It was too late. The crowds of fans saw me without it. I didn't know if they'd realized that their idol was a guy or not. Suddenly, I heard someone call my name. Turning around, I bumped into Tina's father. Young man, can I talk to you for a minute? He took me aside and looked me up and down. I felt uncomfortable and thought that he would also scold me. But then, something incredible happened instead. I really liked your performance. Of all the actors, you were the most suitable for this role. And the fact that a guy will play a female character will be the highlight of the whole project. You agreed to the role, right? What an unexpected turn. Of course I agreed. As Rachel had said, it was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. But then I remembered Tina. Her father was unwittingly fulfilling my dream, so why couldn't he do the same for his own daughter? For Tina's sake, I decided to do something risky. I told the producer I had a condition. I would only accept the role if he would talk to her. I tried to explain how much Tina wanted to become a pilot and how much it meant to her. At first, the producer got angry and even told me not to meddle in his family affairs, but I managed to find the right words and he agreed to hear his daughter out. I thought after everything that had happened, Tina wouldn't talk to me. I hardly even ever went online and skipped college classes, wandering around the city instead. However, when I finally came to a lecture, Tina suddenly came up to me. She was beaming. I froze like a fool when I saw her. Ned, I just wanted to thank you. My father finally listened to me and allowed me to do what I loved. Just imagine, he even bought me piloting courses. He told me that you had convinced him to hear me out. Thank you so much. I'm so happy. I'm so sorry I didn't tell you the truth about myself right away. I was afraid that you would stop talking to me. I really like you, Tina. I have for a long time. And then, something happened that shocked me even more than getting that role had. Tina stood on her tiptoes, put her arms around my neck, and kissed me. Since then, we started dating. That's the story. Tina was successfully taking piloting courses and spending her free time with me at the film studio. Now everyone knows that a guy called Ned is hiding behind the bright mask of Nancy. Some people hate me for it. Some reacted to the news calmly. But most of my subscribers still support me. I got a good advance for the role and monetized my account. I managed to get rich very quickly. And the first thing I did was help my parents and pay off their debts. Rachel finally moved back to Los Angeles. We often stream together. Most people think that only rich and successful people live in Hollywood. I also live here and even acted in a big movie. But you know what? It doesn't matter where you live, how much you earn, or how you look. The most important thing is to be unique. Stay true to yourself and not let what others think about you influence your decisions. What's your dream job? Tell us in the comments down below.
We live on a small island. It gets awfully crowded here in the summer, but you can't even see a soul in the street in the winter. We live in the southern part of the island. There are no other homes around, so our part of the island is always quiet. My great-great-grandfather Benjamin made his fortune as a sea merchant, building his business over many years. He settled here when he decided to retire and constructed a wonderful house on top of the island's highest peak. Our house may look fancy from the outside, but it's old and has started falling apart. Every time it rains, the roof leaks everywhere. The heating system keeps breaking down, too, so we have to wear our coats inside. On top of all that, the water always shuts off when we shower. My dad would spend most of his time patching up the house, but he'd never complain. He was proud of our family. To him, this house was the crux of our family history. We've dedicated one of the rooms to our ancestors. A sign on the door reads, "Family is the biggest treasure." We keep many family heirlooms in that room. For example, this is my great-great-grandfather's marine binoculars, his old tobacco pipe, and his pocket watch with a photo of his wife on the outside. That's my great-great-grandmother. My dad used to spend a lot of time in that room. He would sit me down next to him and tell me family stories while restoring or repairing our family treasures. "One day you'll be the caretaker for this room. I know you'll treasure our elders as much as I do," he would say. 3 years ago, we had a bad winter. A stormy day opened up a big gaping hole in our roof. The rain started pouring into the upper level. My dad climbed up to the roof to close the hole, but he lost his balance and fell. His death upended our lives in an instant. It's been 3 years since that day. Ever since then, I spend most of my day in the family room like my dad used to. One day, my mom walked in. "Luke, I want to tell you something important. I've been seeing someone for some time now, and we got married on a whim yesterday." I was shocked. I empathized with my mom's depression. I understood her pain, but I could hardly believe her words. Why wouldn't she at least introduce me to the person she planned to marry beforehand? "David's going to move in with us," my mom continued. "The 3 of us are going to live together. I'm sure you'll get along great." David moved in the next day. I barely had time to get to know him, but I felt terrible for her. When I found out David had no source of income, I began to worry my mom had married a gold digger. Convincing her wasn't going to be easy, though. One day, while maintaining the family room, David crept in. He stared at our family heirlooms with a coveting gaze. He picked up a brooch that once belonged to one of our great aunts. "Do you realize there's a fortune to be made here?" he asked. "These